After delivering a massive box office success with Dhurandhar, Ranveer Singh is at the absolute peak of the mountain and is not planning to play it safe. In fact, he is taking the biggest risk of his career.
अगर तुम लोगों के पटाखे खत्म हो गए तो मैं धमाका शुरू करूं.
Even after the Dawn 3 controversy, the baseless FWIC ban,
38 crafts, उसके जितने भी मेंबर हैं वो आज के बाद रणवीर सिंह के साथ काम नहीं करेंगे.
the actor and his new production company are taking all the Dhurandhar momentum and throwing it into a 300 crore zombie movie titled Pralay. And believe me when I say this, what Ranveer Singh is doing right now is either the boldest creative bet in Hindi cinema or the beginning of the most expensive fall from a career peak that Bollywood has ever seen. Today we are going to break down every single piece of this project, why he chose this path, the financial pressure he's operating under, the creative choices happening behind the scenes, and honestly whether any of this can actually work. To really understand the scale of this risk, we have to look at the actual track record of this genre. There is a very specific pattern, and that pattern is important.
Bolo, tell.
Hollywood has this formula completely figured out, and they literally print money with this genre.
You're goddamn right.
In World War Z, Brad Pitt fights against massive swarms of infected people flooding through cities like a tidal wave. Massive global hit. But here is the thing, big spectacle is only one part of the puzzle. The real secret to a successful zombie property is the human story underneath all of it.
We're getting out of here.
The Walking Dead TV show completely redefined the genre for an entire generation. People did not stay with it for over a decade just to watch zombies getting their heads smashed. They watched it because the show understood that the zombie is just a device. The real story is about what happens to people when the rules of civilization disappear completely. What do normal people do when they have to make impossible choices every single day just to survive? The zombies eventually become background noise. The real threat is always a person standing next to you.
Stop pretending like you can talk to those freaks. Poor bastard's jets.
South Korea understood this perfectly with Train to Busan, one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen. They did not try to make a massive global action film. They confined the entire story to a single train, a father trying to protect his daughter. That simple emotional core turned a modest zombie movie into one of the most watched Korean films in international history. The lesson is clear. Wherever you make a zombie film in the world, the human stakes have to hit harder than the horror itself. India is a completely different market. The zombie genre has basically flatlined every single time someone has tried it in Hindi cinema. Go Goa Gone came out with Saif Ali Khan. Fun movie, found a good cult following, but it was a comedy. It was never designed to be a mainstream blockbuster.
Are you really Russian? What? You look a little desi. हाँ, दिल्ली से हूँ.
Tamil cinema gave us Viruthan, which had a genuine ambition but never broke through into the Hindi mainstream. The genre refuses to explode here. Every time someone tries it, the result is the same. But why? Because the cultural fear itself is different. Western audiences connect with zombies through the lens of science fiction, a viral outbreak, a lab experiment gone wrong, a genetic mutation. Those fears are grounded in a very specific Western anxiety about technology, disease, and the spread of scientific change. That tradition goes back decades in Western literature and film. Indian audiences are wired completely differently. Our horror tradition is much older and much more personal. It comes from folklore, from religion, from unresolved spirits and ancestral punishment, and forces that operate outside the rules of any laboratory.
बात तो सही है.
The booth is frightening because it comes from someone you knew. The pisage is frightening because it represents punishment for something done wrong. The chudail is frightening because she reminds you that grief can turn into something monstrous. These are fears that live inside our cultural memory. In simpler terms, we do not fear the virus the way we fear the entity. When an Indian audience watches a zombie film, they are being asked to fear something that generally does not live in their nightmares. A dead body walking around does not carry the same weight as a pret rising from an unfinished ritual. The supernatural framing is absent, and without that framing, the genre feels borrowed. It feels like somebody else's story being told in our language. That is the exact wall Pralay is trying to walk through. So how is the creative team approaching this problem? Because honestly, they're clearly aware of it. They're not making a comedy, they're not going the goofy monster movie route. They're dropping a married couple into the middle of a collapsed Mumbai. A deadly pandemic has wiped out most of the city population. Society is completely gone. This couple has has to fight their way through infected people just to find a reason to keep going. Ranveer plays the male lead, but the casting for his on-screen wife is generally smart. Kalyani Priyadarshan is stepping in as a female lead. This is her official Bollywood debut. She is coming off a massive success with Loka. Bringing her into this project immediately builds a base audience in the southern market before a single frame is shot.
सुन क्या ये उड़ भी सकती है?
The production design is attempting to show a Mumbai that has been rotting for months, a city reclaimed by silence and decay. Building that practically would eat through the entire budget in sets and locations work alone. So the team will probably lean on AI-driven visuals. The goal is to give the city a haunting, photorealistic quality that no practical shoot could afford. If it works, Mumbai itself becomes a character, not a backdrop, a living, breathing character that happens to be dying. There was a lot of noise about the source material early on. Heavy rumors started circulating that the script was an adaptation of Blindness by Jose Saramago. That is a brilliant novel about a city that suddenly loses its sight and descends into complete chaos. The rumor started because the director literally asked the entire cast to read the book as preparation. People connected the dots and assumed they were filming the novel. Jai Mehta killed that rumor directly. He confirmed that Pralay is a completely original story written by Jai Mehta and Vishal Kapoor, and he was specific about the reasoning. He said adaptations of books like Blindness tend to fail on screen because the magic of the prose cannot survive the translation. The themes can travel, the actual story cannot. So the team is taking the emotional core of societal collapse and rebuilding it as a brand new action survival thriller set in a Mumbai no Indian audience has ever seen. Coming to the challenges and stakes, the financial math of Pralay is honestly terrifying. 300 crores is an enormous number to bet on a genre with zero proven record at the Hindi box office. For the film to break even in India alone, it basically needs to perform like a major holiday release. Industry estimates on a film of this scale suggest it would need to gross somewhere between 700 and 800 crores just to cover the production, prints and advertising costs combined. That means the film needs to fire on every single front at once. North India, South India, the overseas market, multiplexes and single screens both have to show up. Part of that budget is going directly into visual effects, and this is a massive double-edged situation. If the effects work, the imagery of a destroyed Mumbai becomes one of the most talked about visual experiences in recent Indian cinema. It becomes a selling point, a reason to watch on the biggest screen possible, but AI visuals are notoriously unreliable in their execution. One bad sequence in the first 30 minutes and modern audiences will tear the film apart on social media before the evening shows ends. Reviews stop being about the story and start being entirely about the CGI. The conversation shifts, and once that happens, it is almost impossible to pull it back. But the budget is not even the biggest problem Pralay is carrying. The real danger is the complete absence of a marketing campaign. Ranveer recently had a messy and very public exit from Dawn 3. He walked away citing creative differences and script delays. That exit turned into a full-scale legal war. Farhan Akhtar and Excel Entertainment demanded 45 crore in compensation. The Federation of Western India Cine Employees issued a non-cooperation directive against him. They eventually revoked it, but it was one of the ugliest industry disputes in recent memory. Ranveer responded to all this by going completely dark. A trade journalist confirmed he will not be giving any interviews for at least 18 months. He will not speak about the Dawn 3 controversy. He will not appear at press events. No city tours, no brand collaborations tied to Pralay. He is benching himself entirely. Think about what that means for a 300 crore film. A movie at this scale normally runs a massive promotional machine. Ranveer is arguably the single best promotional force in Hindi cinema right now. His energy in front of a camera is unmatched. His personality is the kind that turns a simple press tour into actual cultural moments. And he is voluntarily turning all of that off. This means that the trailers have to do all the heavy lifting. The posters have to be perfect. The social media strategy has to compensate for the absence of the person who is usually the loudest and the most electric part of the social media strategy. This brings us to the Maa Kasam Factor. Ranveer is not just the star of Pralay, he is also the co-producer. He launched his own production banner called Maa Kasam Films specifically to back this project. He brought in True Story Films and Applause Entertainment as partners, but his name is on the banner. His capital is inside this project. His identity as a creative decision maker is riding on the outcome. This changes everything about how you read this risk. An actor who takes a bold role and fails loses a few films worth of momentum. An actor who produces a bold film and fails loses money, loses reputation and loses creative credibility all at the same time. Ranveer is not just putting his face on a poster, he is putting his financial skin in the game. Producing your own vehicle in Bollywood is a double-edged bet. When it works, it makes you untouchable. When it fails, it follows follows you into every contract negotiation for the next 5 years, and Ranveer is producing a zombie film with hardly any marketing campaign and a debut Bollywood female lead, a heavy reliance on untested visuals, and a budget that demands a blockbuster performance just to break even. Believe me when I say this, no mainstream Bollywood actor in the last decade has assembled this specific combination of risks on a single project, not one. And that brings us to the director Jai Mehta, who is taking the chair for Pralay. Even though this will be his theatrical directorial debut, calling him inexperienced would be completely wrong. He co-directed Scam 1992, he directed Lutere. He's a filmmaker with a very specific and very deliberate creative identity. Most Bollywood directors approach a big budget by making everything larger than life. Slow motion hero walks, physics-defying set pieces, saturated colors. Mehta does the exact opposite. He makes the things feel dirty and real and lived in. He builds pressure not through spectacle but through specificity. Small details that accumulate until the tension becomes unbearable. In Scam 1992, he took a story about complex financial fraud and turned it into one of the most gripping things on Indian streaming. He did not do that with action sequences, he did it with meticulous pacing and brilliant use of space. He puts characters in rooms and lets the silence do the work. He is also a master of sound design. In Scam 1992, the ambient noise of the stock market floor became genuinely oppressive. You feel the pressure before anything dramatic even happens. That is a rare skill. Now notice what happens when you take that sensibility and apply it to a zombie outbreak. Basically, a hyper-realistic director handling a high-concept genre film means Pralay will probably not look like a standard Bollywood action movie. Mehta will not treat the zombies as cartoon monsters waiting to be punched through buildings. He will frame them as a relentless, exhausting physical reality. He will make the hunger feel real. The impossible moral choices that come when survival forces you to do things you can never take back. His streaming experience has also trained him to think in long-form emotional arcs. He knows how to make an audience invest in characters over extended time. That is exactly the skill you need when your genre has not historically earned that investment from the Indian market. If Mehta executes this correctly, Indian audiences may not even consciously process Pralay as a zombie film. They will just experience a desperate survival story set in a Mumbai they recognize. That is the only path through the cultural wall, not fighting the resistance directly, going around it entirely.
God! Okay, it's happening! Everybody stay calm! What's the procedure, everyone? What's the procedure? Stay calm!
That is my take on the biggest gamble in Hindi cinema right now. Ranveer Singh is betting his entire Dhurandhar peak on a genre with zero track record in India, and frankly, there is no middle ground with Pralay. Either Ranveer Singh rewrites the rules of Indian genre cinema and makes this the film that finally cracks the zombie genre open for a new generation of Indian audiences, or Dhurandhar becomes a forever high watermark that everything else gets measured against. Do you think Ranveer can actually pull this off, or is a 300 crore zombie film in India a disaster that is already written? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already and check out our latest video on Aditya Dhar directing a sports drama right here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.